We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Our special coverage here on the show, we're following what's happening with Hurricane Ian this morning, approaching Category 5, and one way or the other, it affects us all in this region of the country, in Tennessee. Even though that storm is not going to bring a ton of rain, and we don't have to worry about the hurricane here per se, there are a lot of other elements to it. We have loved ones that are down in that area. We have people going down to help, all right? We have a large crowd, 2.5 million people evacuating, okay? And many of them will end up in this area. And this is a popular vacation spot. Lelan Statom's joining us throughout the program. We have one of our own crew down there right now in Storm 5 Titan to assist with the coverage for some of our affiliates. But we're talking about just how this storm's going to make land, okay? And it looks like one of our crew members, Dan Blommel's right there in Fort Myers, that could, it's right there, is lining up with that. Once it hits, okay, and starts making it across, there are some hurricanes I've seen in the past that kind of just, they go. If it's a slower moving one, which it sounds like this one is, if it just stays there, it's just dumping, right?
It's just dumping. So right now, here's a look at the map and the track. So at this moment, it's moving northeast at around 10 miles per hour. But
is that slow for a hurricane?
It is slow for a hurricane, but you know, on average with some of them as well. It may slow down just a little bit once it pushes on land. So you see at 2 o'clock, the core, as we talked about before, there's rain. It's already impacting the Sunshine State. But at 2 o'clock, the core of it is still south of Tampa. And you mentioned Fort Myers. So Fort Myers is actually what, I don't know distance-wise.
Just south
but
of
it's
Tampa.
Southeast of the Tampa area.
Right.
But notice by 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's still at a strong storm system, and then as we go into 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it's a tropical storm on the northeast side of Orlando. So now watch it stay. It may not drop below tropical storm status. It will die down a bit over land, but it could still be a tropical storm going near Jacksonville, and that's at 2 a.m. Friday morning. And then by 2 p.m. Friday afternoon, winds at 50 miles per hour near Savannah. We'll watch to see over the Atlantic, does it strengthen a little bit? And so that's something that we'll watch. But yeah, that's the current path. But that will be massaged a bit through the day from our friends at the National Hurricane Center.
So even if it's a tropical storm, as you say, it's making it cross land when it does. Okay, and it's slow moving. So a tropical storm, so as it's going, I have a friend who's in Melbourne, Florida, and he is not evacuating. There was not a mandatory evacuation there. I talked with him this morning, and he says that, yeah, we're staying put, but our predictions are up to maybe a foot of water. So if it's moving slowly, so that's what we're talking about. Even if it's a tropical storm, that's going to cause problems.
It's a tropical storm, and we've seen with other tropical storm systems that were just tropical storms, but if they were slow moving and dumped a lot of water, that created some flash flooding down there. Now, there's a difference in getting a foot of rain and a foot of water with the storm surge, because a foot of rain is just the rain falling that could create flooding. The storm surges, they actually think the ocean water at the beach is going to rise to a foot or more.
Which is what happened. This video here is from Cuba, okay? And there you see kind of, that's what storm surges start as, right? It hits in, and you're right, it's much different than rainfall. That sudden flash flood, huge walls of water can come that way. And my understanding is the entire electric grid in Cuba was knocked out.
Exactly,
I mean, out. The whole area was black. And so this is what a storm surge is like. This is not video right now. It had already passed Cuba and has done its damage, but this is an idea of what's to come.
An idea of what is to come, and so you get that wall of water, and the winds can do damage for sure, but if a wall of water comes in at 5 feet high, 10 feet high, 15 feet high, and it keeps beating against those buildings, then that storm surge can do a lot of the damage when these hurricanes come on shore.
You know, tell me if you agree with this. Completely different scenario, but we know about the catastrophic flooding that claimed so many lives in Waverly. And we came up with what ultimately led to that horrible flooding there, and it was, we understood, a berm that had backed up, and the water from torrential rainpour had filled and backed up, and suddenly that berm gave way. And I interviewed some of the families that were hit by this, and it was a wall of water. Again, Different scenario than this, of course, no hurricane involved, but that wall of water is the same type of thing. And when it hit them, it was in a moment's notice, and they could do nothing.
They couldn't do anything.
Right? And is that kind of what we're talking about?
Almost what we're talking about here. It may be a little bit more gradual as far as the storm surge and the wall of water coming up, but
once
for
it
them,
came loose,
it was all at one time.
Yeah.
For them, this is maybe a more gradual rise in that seawall there, but at one point it's 3 feet high, at another point it's 6 feet high, and in some cases it may be over 10 feet high.
Yeah. Just imagine looking up and seeing a 10-foot wall of water coming to you, and that's where we think the loss of life can come when that flooding hits so suddenly like that. The buildings, some of them can take it, some of them can't.
Some of them can take it. Some of them are built to withstand winds at a certain level, but again, if you throw in a high storm surge and it's beating against the walls, again, storm surge can do a lot more damage sometimes than just the winds themselves.
Now, we know about the hurricanes that have hit places like New Orleans and the like. Now, I know Florida's had its hurricanes.
You're
but
right.
Weren't they saying that this area, Tampa per se, and some of the others, I heard some statistic, either one this large or otherwise, it's been over 100 years since one has hit this specific location. I don't know if you heard that, and that may be inaccurate. It may have to do with the size of it, but I don't think Tampa, I can't remember the last time the Tampa area was hit by a hurricane. And here's video out of Tampa.
There was
this is Tampa right now.
A few years ago in the Gulf and on the Gulf side of Florida. The stat that you're talking about is that Tampa itself has not been hit by a major hurricane in over 100 years. Now, the difference is they've again had some hurricanes here within the last decade or so, I do believe. But a major hurricane is when it's category 3 or higher.
Okay, and
so if it's a category 1, category 2, they may have seen those, but a category 3 or higher hadn't hit the Tampa area since 1921.
Okay, interesting. So I heard that, and it seems now that's going to happen. This video is of Tampa now, and as you just said, this is not even, the brunt of it that's coming.
Right.
And so, as you made the very good point, already, and Dan's seeing some of it as we talked to him, our photojournalist down there, that is what's happening already. That plane was flipped upside down?
Plane was flipped upside down, and some of that wind, I think maybe in a couple of other cases, there may have been a tornado down that way. So again, when these come on shore, they have a tendency to spawn tornadoes. But already wind gust over 50 and 60 miles per hour ahead of the high wall.
Is a 60-mile-an-hour gust going to knock you over if you're walking out there?
Yes.
It will?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't, you just see it. I mean, how much, some of the people on Facebook that are following us, one has said that we're in Panama City right now, and others are asking, how is it there? We were coming down Monday, but have decided to wait. Do you think that's prudent?
I think that's prudent because you'll want to see what's happening after the fact. Now, if you had vacation plans, let's say Tampa and on the southeast, Fort Myers, Naples, I would closely follow what's going on, maybe not cancel them just yet, but be prepared to, because even though the storm may be gone by then, will there be damage where crews are working on damage down that way? So I would sit on the vacation reservations. Hopefully this time of the year you took out maybe some insurance on that, but just sit on those reservations. Now, if it's in the northern part of Florida, back over toward the Florida Panhandle, I don't know that they're going to take the direct hit. Yeah, they'll have rain, they'll have some strong winds, maybe even tornadoes on one side of the storm system, but again, sit on reservations to see what is going on as we head into the weekend. Now, for some folks, they're not leaving until Monday or Tuesday. They got a little bit more time. For other people who are planning to leave on Saturday or Sunday, they've got to make a quicker decision on what's going on.
Let's take a phone call or two. I think we've got Granger. Granger, good morning. Hi, Granger.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. What's on your mind?
I'm a Red Cross volunteer on standby to go down there.
Oh, okay.
And 5 years ago, at Fort Myers, they got hit by Hurricane Maria, which at one point was a Category 5 hurricane. And so just wanted to thank Lelan for the great coverage you give. It's helpful for me as I sit here and wait and wonder when it'll all settle down and the airports reopen so they'll start sending us in. And just remind everybody, if you'd rather do something to help, the Red Cross is a great way to give back to the community. They pay all your expenses when you go off on something like this, and they do it in a safe manner so that we're protected. And I know 5 years ago I was sitting here, looking at my tablet and noticed they needed somebody with my specialty, which is social work. And I got all the training over a weekend and went down there with 300 Red Cross volunteers in the Fort Myers area and stayed for a few weeks. And they have a wonderful system of shelters down there where they have county rec centers that are these monolithic concrete things that when a disaster like this hits, they convert to shelters for all the people who can't afford to go off or they wait too late. And so, Lelan, I guess I want to finish up with a question for you. We seem to be having more and more of these horrific events around the country based on climate change.
Yes.
And how are we ever going to adapt so that, these things are very expensive both in dollars and in human cost? Do you have any ideas what to do about that?
It's going to take, thank you very much. And Ranger, also thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And again, the Red Cross is doing a great job of training those folks so they'll know what to do, but also assisting our neighbors to the south. So we appreciate you very much for that. On the other part of his question, climate change. And it's going to take an effort from leaders around the world. It's not just a country here or a country there. It is going to take help from leaders around the world. And I was speaking to a women's group yesterday and was talking to them about the 10 costliest hurricanes. All had, and I think really the 5 costliest hurricanes, all had rapid intensification. And we saw a little bit of this with Ian overnight. And all of them had billion-dollar damage. And that's 5 of the costliest hurricanes on record happening since the turn of the century. And part of that is due to what's going on with climate change. A warmer water can feed these hurricanes, and warmer water causes the rapid intensification. And it's not just the damage that's happening in Florida. When these things go northward, then if you look at a map of damage and dollar cost, it's even had an impact here in Tennessee over the last 20 or so years. So climate change is fueling that, but from a global standpoint, it's going to take the help of global leaders from around the world who are insisting on change.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And by the way, when it comes to the nature of disasters and how costly they are, I think a hurricane situation in this is the worst of the worst. Of all the disasters we've covered here, from fires to tornadoes, to flooding.
Yes.
To me, flooding is far and away the most devastating.
Right.
Okay. I mean, tornadoes are awful. Okay, don't get me wrong, but lightning storms, all that, no. Okay. Flood's the worst, and it seems like a hurricane combines both of it. Once it gets to land, it combines tornadoes and flooding. Because not only is the damage just right there at that instant, just getting crushed and destroyed, but then it moves on, and then everything's left drenched. You've got black mold forming. You've got everything ruined by water.
Yeah.
It is the most costly. Flooding, the floods that we had here back in 2010, to me, the worst disaster of any we've covered. Of any. We've had some bad tornadoes. Nothing compares to that 2010 flood. And I'm not necessarily talking about loss of life always. I'm talking about dollar and cents, how long it takes to replace and fix everything.
If we do think of just what happened here at the station, and we were on the edge of it. And so, flooding can be a major issue out there, especially when you think that oftentimes flooding is at the near the top of what's causing death for some folks as well. And so all of them are bad, but as you talked about with the hurricanes, you get a hurricane, it's bringing you the strong winds, it's bringing you the storm surge, and there's the flooding aspect of it, and then there's the tornadoes thrown in there with it as well. And they are so widespread.
They're widespread. We'll take a break on that. When we come back, more of your phone calls and some incredible video from a Twitter feed showing the way the water has been sucked out before that surge comes. Stay tuned.
And they are so wide.